Oh, so thank you for meeting with me today, Michelle. Let's start at the very beginning. What first inspired your interest in psychology?
So, I grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and my prevailing thought as a child is why do these grown ass men want to kill me? Probably not the ass bit, but why do people do the things that they do? And then
Yeah.
clearly, as a teenager, I got really into sort of cults and serial killers in terms of why did they
Why?
why what went wrong in their lives, you know? So I think it was about 15 when the TV show Cracker came out. So
Mm-hmm.
so Robbie Coltrane. So it's I say when I do like talks at schools, like, so you know Hagrid. Before he was Hagrid, he was this really sort of gritty forensic psychologist who worked with the police to catch all of the serial killers in the UK. And I was like, that's the job I want. That's what I want to do. I want to catch these bad guys before they do any bad stuff. Um, and so that was it. I was like, I'm going to be a criminal psychologist. I like cracker and like with less of the whiskey and the smoking, but like him and not being Scottish. And I got myself. I didn't do particularly well at school because A levels are the worst time because that's when you're developing independence and interest in alcohol and boys and partying and having fun. So I scraped by some A levels and got into a degree studying psychology at Sunderland University.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was in my second year when I found out that forensic psychologists in the UK, they work in prisons most of all, dealing with criminals who have already been caught. And A and B, we don't have serial killers very much in this country, and to actually have a profession catching them. And then C, oh, I can't remember what the C is, but there's a C. And I was like, crap. This is why I'm at university studying psychology, and now I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And my dissertation, I just happened to find a project looking at how much control you have over your work life and how much stress that you feel. So I was doing it in like a professional like a big huge like industrial laundry company, and we're looking at
Right.
blue collar and white collar workers because we were allowed to call them that in the olden days. And I was like, this is fascinating. It's like how much control you have over your work life and how much stress if you're working on the industrial presses, then you have little control because you're pretty much controlled by the machines. And so you can find that really stressful, whereas the people in the office can have more sort of sense of control. And it's talked about agency, and it's like, this is fascinating. So then that's kind of renewed my interest. And then I did a master's in occupational psychology. At Northumbria, we were the guinea pigs. So we rocked up without it being properly authorized, and so you can't assess it as like being good enough by the BPS until you run the first one. So we went on as guinea pigs, and I I enjoyed some of the psychology bits on my first degree, but some of it was like dull. And the
Mm-hmm.
whole all of the Freud stuff, I was just like, no. I was like sitting in this auditorium with 200 students, and they're talking about Freud, and everyone was like going, and I was like, this just seems bullshit. I just didn't like that. Like took an immediate, like almost affront to this guy who was.
Yeah.
It's like, oh look, all of these women and children are being sexually harassed and assaulted, and then the men come in and go, no, they're not. And it's like, oh, so Freud's like, well, they just must want to be. Yeah. Anyway, so there were bits that I did not enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I loved every single second of my masters, every topic, just
Oh,
fascinating. And you can imagine my surprise when I went into work and, knowing all of the good ways to motivate people and how the good ways to reward people and how the good ways to lead people and, what good looks like in terms of organizational design. And my literal jaw hit the floor because we know how to make organisations better and more productive and employees happier, but we don't do it. We do the opposite.
And who were you working for? And I don't necessarily mean what specific company, because you might not want to name them, but what kinds of organisation was it?
It's literally
all of them.
So I, again, it was like 2001. So my first company was good because I worked for an organisational psychologist. There was just two of us in his like small practice, and that was great because I was able to have access to like clients that I wouldn't have access to, and projects that I wouldn't have access to, you know, at that age.
Yeah.
So I was doing development centres for Hallmark and Bradford and Bingley Bank, and so that was really interesting, and that helped me loads. So it wasn't that company, that was my first proper job. It was so when I left there, it was because I would have had to sell consultancy services as well, and I was a very young bubbly girl at 21, you know, and I had that feedback most of my life that I had it most of my career, that I lacked gravitas because I was too bubbly. And I know now that that's the good girl double bind, where you are judged on your likability and your credibility. So if your likability is too high, your credibility falls. But then if your credibility is too high, see Hillary Clinton, your likability falls, and you have to maintain this weird balance of likability and credibility, which is impossible to achieve because everybody's perception of what you should be is different. So, you know, you just on hide into nothing. So yes, it was recruitment companies, it was construction companies, it was engineering and environmental companies, it was IT companies, it was all of it. And nobody was listening to me.
So you were working as a consultant, kind of coming into these organisations?
No. So my first job was a consultant, which I loved. And then I had to stay in the Northeast. So my jobs were limited. So I worked in HR departments, effectively. And I was always the weird one that nobody really knew what to do with, because I wasn't HR. I wasn't quite learning and development. And this was before they really knew what to do with psychology, you know, occupational psychologists. And so I kind of muddled a career through in that. I think
that's hard, isn't it, at that stage? I'm sort of thinking about myself at similar ages and how much I would have struggled with that, because I thought I knew more than I did. It's only looking back that I realise how sort of young and inexperienced I was, and how much my first job after qualifying as a clinical psychologist, I was very isolated, sort of sole practitioner in part of that role. And I didn't know yet who I was as a clinical psychologist. And I didn't even realise that I didn't know that about myself, because I thought, well, I've done the training, I know what this is all about. But that's a tough position to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was just like, what is
what
this?
Yeah.
Like, this is what... And I knew from very early on. So one of the reasons why I really was excited about being an occupational psychologist is I knew I wanted to work for myself.
Right.
You know, there's no huge like surprise around me looking at control and agency and autonomy and empowerment for my undergraduate dissertation. They're the things that drive me, and I just didn't feel like I was old enough, gravitas enough, and proper enough for people to take me seriously.
I guess that would be a lot of people's perception, wouldn't it? Oh, I've got to prove my worth. I've got to. For me, I often merge the two of getting more experience to get a bit older looking. Again, I remember in my 20s, people often saying to me, "Oh, you look very young to be doing this sort of work," and how patronising that would feel, and how much that would sort of limit my self-confidence. So that idea that you've got to kind of prove your worth, you've got to have demonstrated that you know what you're doing, and then you can perhaps be self-employed and have your own business.
it wasn't any of that made me self-employed. It was complete and utter burnout from the toxicity of organisations. I just couldn't. I couldn't anymore. I couldn't attend any more interviews. It was I either don't work ever again or I work for myself. There was no option in the end. I just couldn't play the game anymore.
Yes.
And give away pieces of my soul for a wage.
Yeah. Well done you for recognising that. What came next?
So yes, my last proper job, where I don't know whether I was sacked for the first time in my life, and that's, as a people pleaser, that's a big blow, or whether I walked out. It's kind of a bit of, I don't know, a bit of both. I walked out laughing and crying at the same time. It's like, what does hysterical look like?
Oh, I can imagine all the feels, the relief,
and I was
perhaps some terror about what next.
And so I did what most psychologists do when they leave proper jobs, is set up a very boring professional practice. And I was surprisingly able to get work, which was really nice. I wasn't rolling in it, but I was able to get some nice projects and work with some lovely clients. And all of a sudden, because I was an external person, they listened to me. What?
That's interesting, isn't it? Thinking about where kind of power sits, and is that the money? Like, we're investing in this in a different way?
It was just that realization. Absolutely insane. Interesting though, really interesting. But it just didn't quite feel like me. So what happened was I had put myself forward for an award, we're told to, and I ended up on International Women's Day 2020, so that's like the 8th of March 2020. So if you remember, this was just as
that was that week or a couple of weeks before we went into lockdown, wasn't it?
So we were allowed to meet, but we weren't allowed to hug.
Okay.
So I rocked up to the House of Lords for this breakfast meeting, and there was a lord there, Lord Old Dude, I don't know. And then I clocked this woman in the room, and I was just drawn to her because she is objectively gorgeous, but also she was just amazing, confident, and it's just like, wow, I want to be like you when I grow up, even though she's only like a couple of years difference. And she...
I still say that,
when I grew up.
Yeah.
I'm 47, Michelle. And she was telling us all about her recent ADHD diagnosis. And honestly, if you could have a cartoon light bulb when she was talking... So she was literally just holding court. She wasn't like on the bill. And I was like, oh my God, this just rings true. Everything she said, apart from the sport, I wasn't interested in sport as a child, but everything else was totally me. And then obviously I decided that she would be my best friend, standard. And within sort of 6 months, I had my ADHD diagnosis too. And what was really interesting, that alongside that diagnosis, I expected to find some relief. But there wasn't a lot of relief. There was just a whole lot of fury and anger. I was absolutely furious. What would my life have looked like if we'd had this information sooner? Looking at all of my school reports, all of the feedback I was getting in organisations pointed to ADHD. Like, looking back, it's like there were signs. My child at that point was getting, going through his own diagnosis too. And I was terrified because as women, we're not allowed to be angry. Rage is not what's supposed to happen. Angry women get locked up in lunatic asylums in the 1800s.
You're allowed to be sad, aren't you? But not angry.
Yeah, we're allowed. We're allowed the sad emotions, and we're allowed the joyful emotions and the nurturing emotions, but we're not allowed the angry emotions. That's wholly only for men.
Mm.
Anyway, so
And let alone if you were a black woman, that's a whole
yeah,
other story, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So scared me, went for some coaching and therapy because that's what good girls do. And then I came after about a year of raging. I got to the point where I kind of understood me, my brain, but there was this whole big black ball of people pleasing, conflict avoidance, deferring to authority, not being able to say no, not having any boundaries whatsoever, giving and giving and giving and not asking for what I need, all of that stuff. And I was like, but what is
Yeah.
all of this? And I figured out it was what is known as good girl conditioning. So all of the ways that women are raised, trained, conditioned to be nice, to be kind, to care, to share, to look pretty, spend a fortune on making sure we couldn't possibly age because aging's the worst thing we can do as women. How dare we? And I was like, what is this? And then I got into the whole hyper-focus thing about this good girl conditioning, and I was invited to come on an L&D online during the pandemic conference to talk about it. And the woman that was doing the doing the conference was like, well, of course you're going to tell us how we are conditioned to be good girls. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know that. And then I went down this whole, again, hyper-focus rabbit hole thing. Went back to the whole, as a 16-year-old, you're really interested in cults. And I was like, so if we think that the patriarchy is one big cult and we're all brainwashed into this patriarchy, which clearly, obviously, we are, how do we get brainwashed? So I went down the whole, like, how do cults recruit people? And anyway, and I came across this chap called Albert Biderman, who was a social scientist in the US in the 1950s. He was asked by the US military to figure out whether the Chinese had a magical mystery brainwashing machine, because during the Korean War, the American prisoners of war were defecting to China. They were being released and defecting to China. As you would imagine, that scared the bejesus out of the Americans, because they were all they were very, again, use that word, hysterical around communism and socialism in America. And it's like, why would you go from like America to be a communist? What is wrong with you? Anyway, thankfully for the world, the Chinese didn't have a magical mystery brainwashing machine, but they had various tools of coercive control that were able to strip the person of their identity, their wants, their needs, their beliefs, and reprogram all of these new ones. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, as you can imagine.
We can use this. Yeah.
So I printed it off and I was like, does this work for women and girls under patriarchy? And I went from, oh, this is interesting, to the rage was worse than the first rage.
Mm.
And I did the talk and it wouldn't go away. So I was like, right, I know this now. I can't unsee it. I see it everywhere. I see it with all of us. I see it in all of our interactions, all of the media, all just, parents, children. So I had to write the book. So that's what happened next.
Yeah. And I mean, so many of the people, you can imagine, so many people that I've talked to for this channel, and I don't know whether this happens in other careers, but so often there is this real intermingling, isn't there, of personal experience shaping our interest. And I love what you've done there. It sounds like you, through that kind of life crisis and that reevaluation of where you were at, you really reflected on that. You learned everything. You got everything you could out of that to understand yourself. And then, of course, you took that step of, well, this isn't just me. This is endemic. So if this is useful for me, how many other, and I'm not even just going to say how many women and girls, but how many people, because I think it's important for men as well to be thinking about these things. How many other people need to know this stuff?
Yeah. I'm developing a body of work around what I'm calling model man conditioning as well. So all of the ways that men are trained to behave, and the kind of, it's the, you're a 4-year-old little boy at your dad's funeral, and all of the adults are saying to you, "You're the man of the house now." It's
Oh,
that. It's that
mm,
that
mm,
the unrealistic expectations that we have on our all of our children.
yeah, yeah. So what does a sort of typical week look like for you at the moment? I know it's such a
No, I
rubbish
love it.
question, isn't it? What are the things that you do? Obviously, you're writing, you're developing. I haven't heard about the model man element before, so that's cool to hear about.
That'll be book 4, and I haven't finished with the
Oh.
women yet. So yeah, book 1's the adult women. Book 2 is the teenage.
And for the listeners, just to say this is Good Girl Deprogramming.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and then the teenage, and then I've got the women at work thing. So I have figured out that we adopt all of these different roles as women. So there's the pleaser, the perfectionist, the caregiver, the invisible one, and these are adaptive, very intelligent, adaptive roles for us to be able to cope with living in
mm,
in all of the systems that we have to cope with living in. So my sort of average week is a lot of a lot of talking about this stuff, as you can
yep.
imagine, and writing about it and trying to be. It's like I need to get this information out. It's not, it's useful, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I've got just finishing both programs. So I've got 2 programs at the moment. One is an internal 12-month leadership development program for women, and it's all of the what lies beneath. It drives me insane. You look at female leadership development programs, it's like, how can you become more confident? And how can you do this? And how can you do that? It's like, we need to know why we are not rewarded for being confident.
Mm, mm.
So it's like, and what lies beneath all of that. So I'm finishing that. Well, the last session is next week. I'm bringing
Oh,
tissues. There will be tears, but I have all the feedback for that, and that's gone epic. Really well. It's an insurance company, and I'm so grateful that they let me play in there. And
yeah. And
yeah,
this is just to be clear, this is a group for women in leadership roles already or
yeah,
looking to move into them.
yeah, bit of both.
Yeah, bit of both.
And then I've got a public access program as well. So for for other people. So I've got that, and that's also coming to an end, but it's fine because what I
Oh,
because this we've been trained lifelong training into this. I'm not going to go right. There we go. You've had your year with me. Off your trot. So for both the internal people and the people on the program, they can come back as many times as they need to. So
yeah,
off for free,
nice.
because that's how we change the world. And it's like, but if it's good, why are you offering it again for free? I'm like, because it's like we have layers, layers and layers of this
Yeah,
stuff, and I'm discovering. I've written books, I deliver programs, I do speeches and talks and all of this stuff, and I still find myself trying to please my son's GCSE English teacher.
yeah. And so I can see that that's really helpful in terms of, I think with any sort of training that we take on, we can't take it all on in one go, can
No.
we? And so sometimes, yeah, we need to come back to things over and over again. And it's each time we reread something or each time we come to another session, we get another piece of it that we're
Yeah.
then able to take away and use.
Yeah.
But also as our life changes, perhaps we take on a new job and then there's a different culture in that organization that perhaps wants us to do more people pleasing, and then we get pulled back into something and
Mm-hmm.
then we have to get ourselves out of it again, or different stages of parenting,
Yeah.
relationship changes, all of those things we might then have to kind of reabsorb or rethink some of our deprogramming.
Yeah.
um, I'm sure that what you're saying is going to really resonate with a lot of people listening, but if anyone's listening and sort of, I don't really quite get what this sort of good girl programming is, or why is it so important to change it, maybe the world functions like this, maybe it's useful for us to be good girls, what would you want
We're
to
strategically
say to
using your
that?
good girl. Do it. It's the blindly doing the good girl stuff. So I can behave when I need to, but it's
On
a
a good day.
choice. It's not me being. So there's so many shoulds and obligations on us, and it's really interesting. I've got a client in America, and she's in the North of America. She's got friends in the South of America, and she's talking about. I did a workshop last night around like overgiving and how when you rescue somebody, you're taking away their agency and you're creating this culture of learned helplessness. And we need to give people as much agency as possible. Again, looking at my dissertation, it's like 18 or
Yeah,
20.
yeah.
And she sent me an email last night, and I was like, oh, wow, this is why it's needed, because obviously you've got the capitalistic conditioning and the patriarchal conditioning and the white supremacist conditioning and the religious conditioning, and especially in certain pockets, should we say pockets of America,
Yeah, yeah.
that I'm going to say it, Christo-fascists culture, it involves a lot of sacrifice for women, because that's all they hear. And this email's like, my friend said that she has to give and give and give to the point of exhaustion to be a good Christian woman. And I was like, oh. So yes, what I need to do is crowdfund to get as many books into the hands of these Southern Baptist Christian women to say, dudes, there is another way. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that example. That really helps me to see where you're making me feel very privileged to function in a much more in not sort of minimizing the issues in the world that I feel like I live in, but a lot of privilege there, a lot less conditioning.
Yeah.
And that sort of cultural comparison. I mean, that I think North America is interesting, isn't it? Because it can feel very similar to the UK in lots of ways, and also very different in
Yeah.
lots of ways.
You just have to look at the
Have you-
overreaction to Janet Jackson's nipple to say that we
yes,
are not the same country.
no, no. And I always as well, I think, when we see these sort of cultural changes, I'm always aware as well that within a particular family in a particular place, you get different cultures, don't you? So it's never as simple as everybody in the southern USA is functioning in this way, is having this experience.
No, I do work with some southern USA women, if that's what we call them, who are 1,000% on board with this stuff as well. But they look around and just like,
yes,
what is this?
What? And again, that's going to have its own challenges, isn't it? When you're swimming against the tide. And we all need solidarity. We all need people on the same page as us, don't we? To help us to reinforce ourselves and to encourage us.
But that's the important thing. It's if somebody said to me, what can I do to deprogram? What's the first thing? And I was like, gather the women.
Nice.
You have to do this in community with other women, because the truth will set you free, but also it will piss you off really badly.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, our audience here, we're going to be talking to a lot of young women who feel like such an important audience for this. And I love, with a lot of the young women that I'm working with, their world is different to the world that I grew up in. They're way further ahead in thinking about a lot of this, compared to where me and my peers were, which is really exciting, isn't it?
We were subjected to the 90s lad mags and girl power, which was like, upskirting and just the tearing down of women who dared to become too powerful, too pretty, too. It still happens now, but it was horrific in the 90s.
Yeah, and there was, I think the different. I mean, some of that stuff still happens, doesn't it? Well, a
Oh,
lot of it still
I think
happens, but
it's
there was no sort of like that was just the norm. There
yeah,
wasn't. I feel like, so for my teenage daughter, I feel like, yeah, she would see some of that. For us, it was magazines, wasn't it? And oh, look at this person's cellulite, and oh, look at that person's wobbly belly. Like we're still seeing that stuff on social
yeah,
media, but we're also seeing more of a story about why we shouldn't be seeing that,
mm,
which is an improvement, isn't it?
yeah,
Compared to the 90s, that was just what you
yeah.
saw.
Page three,
Um,
normal.
yeah, yeah. So you're on a global mission then. There
Yeah.
is, yeah, you have got your lifelong work
I
ahead of you.
was like, I'm never gonna get bored, so that's nice because
Yeah,
there's always. But also, I figured out really quickly that we are we are really conditioned in the areas of love, sex, and relationships. So I've taken myself off. I'm doing a 2-year program currently to become a love, sex, and relationship coach. Not that I want to be a love, sex, and relationship coach. I just think that's going to really help
yeah,
the women that I work with, because this it drips into all areas of our lives. And what's really interesting with this course I'm on, it's all around self-love and self-regard and self-forgiveness. And that's the core of all of this stuff. If the patriarchy does not want women to love themselves, it's like the absolute opposite. If women loved themselves, the beauty industry would collapse overnight. Um,
so
so much of our free labor would be, would be
mm,
compensated if we paid women for all of the free labor that we did. Could you imagine? Um, so that's where I'm kind of
yeah,
deepening, pun intended, my knowledge skills in that area.
yeah.
Because and then the next thing will be money. Women and money. There we have a complicated
I I
relationship.
was I was just like literally just thinking about that, thinking about how I love how this evolves. And like you say, it started off as you were exploring new ideas, fairly general, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're adding in some more specific bits, and you're thinking about men, and you're thinking about relationships, and yeah, money was coming into my head. And
Mm-hmm.
something I was looking at recently, which you're probably already aware of, is um, the money marketing to men is around investing and making the best of what you've got. The money talk to women is about, oh, stop being so silly and spending all your money on handbags. Um,
Yeah.
this is how to sort of tighten your budget. Um,
When men are more frivolous with money, their hobbies are more expensive than our hobbies.
yes, and women do better in their investments.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, we're being given
Yeah, because
this incorrect story.
if women were supposed to be subordinate to men, I'm not saying we're superior, I'm saying we should be equal. If women were meant to be subordinate, all of this time, effort, energy, money wouldn't have gone into trying to convince us that we were.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh, such an important mission.
Mm-hmm. World liberation.
Yes.
But this is the thing, I can't do it on my own. So I am training other women to be good girl deprogrammers. So I'll have my first graduation next week of my first good girl deprogrammer. Um,
Amazing.
so she is she works in the organisation I'm running the 12-month program with. So she will have her first cohort next month. But I will be backstopping her as well, and I will go in
Yeah.
and zhuzh them up and stuff if I need to.
And is that an expansion that you're thinking to do more of? Because
Oh,
now
I
I
can't do this
picture,
on my own. I need
yeah,
women. I've got somebody in
yeah,
Norway. I've got people all over the planet that want to
yeah.
be involved in becoming good guilty programmers. So
I've got a picture of those pyramids of champagne glasses, and you're at the top, and the bubbles are flowing down.
see, no, it's a circle. It's beacons of light across the planet. There's no hierarchy because the hierarchy does not work for humans. So yes, it's like how can I create a matriarchal company, and what does that look like?
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm coming back to my questions.
Sorry.
What? Um,
One.
I mean, I'm just not sure if people are going to want to watch a 10-hour long video.
You'd be surprised. I
Will.
was on a 13-hour long with the 35 speakers thing on Monday, and I watched most of it. So
Wow. But I do want to ask you some of the questions I've been asking other people that I've interviewed too.
I'll make them shorter this time.
No, don't censor yourself, because that would feel too much like being a good girl, wouldn't it?
I can
And I don't
I
have
can
to be a good
behave.
girl and ask all of my questions. I can do what I want. What are the biggest challenges that you're facing?
So this is really confronting. So not everybody is ready to listen to my message.
Yeah.
So I have actually, because of one of your previous guests and my coach, Wendy Kendall, I have been looking at how I sort of disseminate this information using the trans-theoretical model of change. So looking at the people that aren't ready, what will like not upset them. So it's literally, I come in, do talks, and some people, the defences are up, and that is cool, because I'm very much a consent person. It's like, if this is too much for you, go and watch Love Actually. You know what I mean? Every single relationship in that program is bad. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, go and enjoy your Richard Curtis films. If you come and talk to me, you're not going to enjoy any of them anymore. So you might as well live your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. There's the, looking at this week, it's International Women's Day at the weekend. And the amount of sort of pink washing, like, oh, we gave the women some cupcakes, or we gave them some cosmetic vouchers. That actually happened. And we're just placate the women like they are children, and we don't change anything. So one of the things I insisted on is a wider schedule of work. So the insurance company, we did a gender experience survey. What does it feel like to be a woman and a man, or in this organisation, and what scenarios? And then we've got the board were really involved. The exco, sorry, were really involved in driving this, and the women on the project, the women on the program are now working, if they want to, with various members of the exco to solve these problems. So it's the wider piece, because we can't just sort the women out and expect everything to be fine, because we're putting them in the same environment. So that is like the big thing. It's like, yes, we'll get the women all zhuzhed up, but we'll put them back in the same environment. So they have to again use their perfectly rational, intelligent, adaptive coping strategies to deal with the environment. So it's the changing the environment, and so many people do not know the water that they're swimming in.
Yeah.
So it's removing the blinkers.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Mr. Fish, this is the water you're... without collapsing people and overwhelming them and making them like be angry like me. So it's just like gently. So I think that's the biggest issue. This is identity shift work.
Yeah, it's hard being a trailblazer, isn't it? It's hard being ahead of the curve. That, like you say, some people, it's working for them, the current status quo. So why would they want to listen to you saying that they should be doing something differently?
But it's the shoulds. Should be shoulding anyone. I always say, stop shoulding on yourself.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Nice. That's when you know your conditioning. It's like, oh, I should be doing this. I'm like, why?
Why?
Yeah. Why should you? Is it
really important word to catch, isn't it? And explore.
Just and should, they're the two ones. I'm like, I'm sorry, don't apologise. If you've done something wrong, obviously apologise. But apologising before you speak, it just takes away all your credibility.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay. That was a short answer.
But this is a conversation. This is not a quick fire interrogation. What advice would you give to people who think that they might like to be psychologists?
Ooh, so it's really interesting. Psychology as a profession is absolutely fascinating because you can get involved in all sorts of different bits and pieces. I struggle with the occupational psychology bit because I feel that the British Psychological Society does not do enough to explain what we do to, to the general population. Nobody knows. And I've been doing this for 26 years now, and still people look at me blankly when I say I'm a occupational psychologist. I don't say that anymore. I lost the interest in saying that because they think I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm going to measure them up for some new chairs for their office. Business psychologist or organizational psychologist, and the ABP, the Association for Business Psychology, little shout out to those guys, does a lot more for practitioners. So it's, if you're happy to have to blow your own trumpet a lot, it's still hard because still organizations don't know why they need us, and we just end up being the weirdos in the corner of HR that they don't really quite know what to do with. So you're going to really need to want to do it if you want to do the business psychology route.
Yeah. And for you, that change needs to come through the BPS. Yeah. Don't
get me started on that lot. They just seem to be imploding. It's insane. It's insane. I think if I had my time again and know what I did now, I probably would have gone down the HR route instead. And become a learning and development-y type person.
Yeah. And that's because interesting.
People know what to do with those people.
Yeah. No, you're making me think there about, sometimes it's relatively random, isn't it? The stuff that, we make these decisions when we're young, and there's a lot that we don't know and a lot that we don't know that we don't know. Yeah. So we sometimes fall into careers, and it's only in hindsight that we're like, actually, if I'd known more about that might have been a better fit for me. But you're also making me think, like you say, people don't know what occupational psychology is. I think that applies to a lot of different areas of psychology. And as you're trying to work into different organisations, I'm thinking of some of the sports psychologists that I've supervised who have been quite frustrated sometimes at the lack of understanding of what they do and what they can offer. That they've got all this, for them, they're thinking, well, I've got all this stuff to do, all this education and awareness raising to do before I can do the sports psychology. And I'm saying, I think we have to reframe that as actually that is part of the sports psychology, that is part of the work. That
is the part of the work as an organisational psychologist as well. And I've gone so far beyond my remit now as an organisational psychologist too. Because
that was another bit that I was going to say is so for me as a clinical psychologist, I'm registered with the HCPC, but they don't register us as clinical psychologists. They register us as practitioner psychologists. And for me, I quite like that because it emphasises that we're applied psychologists. And I think you can look at all the different kinds of registered psychologist, and there's always overlap. So if you're thinking about a particular challenge that somebody might want a psychologist to help them to solve, there's always going to be at least 2 or 3 different types of psychologists that they could work with.
It's like a Venn diagram. So what is your problem?
Yeah,
I gave up my HPCP registration. So I stayed with the British Psychological Society because I work for myself, and like none of my clients care. None of my clients know as well.
Yes.
So I pay the BPS and I pay the ABP, but I don't pay the HCPC because I'm not a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
I
didn't realise that you guys were registered with them. Sorry, I talked over you. So I didn't realise that you guys were registered with them. That seems odd, doesn't it? That, like I say, you're not a healthcare professional.
No, I gave it up about 12 years ago. I was just like, what is the point? Nobody knows what chartered psychologist is either. Nobody cares.
Yeah, and that's a whole other a whole other topic, isn't it? The number of people sort of dabbling in psychology without necessarily having the appropriate training and experience behind them. That's
Yeah,
maybe a topic for another day.
and I never talk about it. I don't say like, oh, I'm an associate fellow of the British Psychological Society. I don't.
No. Michelle, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share?
No, I think I've like literally told you everything. I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, I feel like if we were to open a bottle of wine, there's more that we could, definitely more we could talk about. But we won't go there today. For people that want to know more about your work, where can they find you?
Oh, just yeah. I've got one of those names. I think there's 3 Michelle Minnikins on this planet, so you'll be able to, you will be able to find me. But I do hang out a lot, too much. Some people may say on LinkedIn. I have a Substack and various websites and podcasts and books.
Yeah. So Google Michelle Minnikin.
If you want to find me, you will find me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording there.